Welcome back everybody to another episode on the channel. First off guys, I want to thank you guys for all the support. I think we're at like 4,800 subscribers on the channel, so I want to thank you guys all for the support. Like I've been saying guys, at 5,000 subscribers we're doing a rod and reel giveaway along with this huge bag of tackle. So I've got a brand new rod and reel combo for you guys right here, and I'm going to kind of show you guys this thing if I can get it around here. So what we got going on here guys is this is a medium heavy fast action rod. It's gonna come with a rod sleeve on here guys. You've got a Abu Garcia reel on here, brand new reel. The rod's brand new as well. It's got all the wrapping on it. It's even got line ready to rock and roll on here for you guys. So Super K, I want to give another shout out to those guys. They supplied the rod, the reel, and they also supplied a bunch of jigs for you guys. So huge shout out to them in this giveaway. But at 5,000 subs guys, we're doing the rod and reel giveaway along with all that tackle. So if you guys are interested and want to be entered in the giveaway, there's still time. We're about 200 subs out. At 5,000 we're doing that rod and reel giveaway. The only stipulation to be entered in it is all you gotta do is subscribe to the channel. So if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell notification next to it so you don't miss when I upload a video. But once again guys, thank you guys for all of the support. I really appreciate it. I couldn't do it without you guys. I love the interaction with everybody on the channel, so thank you once again. So we're kind of stuck in this little quarantine phase, if you will guys, and lately I have been working on my trailer bunks, or my fender bunks on my trailer. The carpet was old, it was ripping, and it was kind of starting to scratch the boat a little bit. So that has been an undertaking that hasn't been so well. It took me about like 2-3 days just to do one side on the boat. So the other side, now that I got it all figured out, should go a lot faster. I've got brand new carpet here that has to go on that other fender bunk, but we got one done. That's what I've been doing lately, but I got to thinking about it, and spring fishing is right around the corner, and I already did a video talking about my top 5 early spring baits and everything, but I kind of want to go through my top 5 baits for bed fishing. Now we know when the springtime hits, those fish are going to start to move shallow. They're going to get into those shallow bays, those shallow areas, and they're going to start spawning. So if you guys have ever sight fished before or bed fished for bass, it can be a super exciting time. You got to have a lot of patience during this time. So there's a lot of things going on, but you can pretty much roll up into these shallow areas, especially in clear water, and you can see these bass guarding beds or sitting on beds, getting ready to spawn or spawning. And it's a great time to catch them, and it's super exciting because you can see what that fish is doing. It's super fun. Got to have a lot of patience during this time, but it can be a really fun time. So I'm gonna go through my top 5 baits that I think are great for fishing, for bed fishing. So the first bait that I like to use guys is once again a swim jig. Now this is a bluegill kind of colored swim jig guys. What I like about a swim jig guys, especially the bluegill color, is during this time bass are shallow, they're spawning, and they're guarding their beds, and there's usually a lot of bluegill in the area that they're guarding beds from, so it just seems like they go crazy after bluegill this time of the year. Like I said, they're guarding those beds, they're very territorial, and bluegill during this time are swimming around in those areas. So a swim jig bluegill color with a little paddle tail on there seems to work good. You throw it by those beds, and those bass just end up blowing it up because they're, like I said, they're guarding those beds against those bluegill. So bluegill colored swim jig, and what I like about this too guys is not only can you could throw this out there and reel it back through those areas, those beds, you can also throw it out there and just pop it along the bottom. You can work this in a little bit different fashion and sometimes get those bites. The next bait that you guys can use, which is one of my favorites to use, I love using these during this time of the year, especially if you're in an area where it's not so clear of water. It's a little cloudy, but a little darker, but you can still see the beds, and that's going to be a flipping jig. Once again, kind of that bluegill style pattern. This isn't exactly the bluegill pattern, but it's a good pattern. I like to throw a little crawdad on here for a trailer, and I like to just throw this near the bed and just let it sit there and just try to pop it along on that bed and get that fish to strike. So I like to use like a 1/2 ounce flipping jig, I think it works good because of the fall rate on it. I feel like it falls really quick, so it catches that bass off guard and they just want to hit it right away just because they're instinctively trying to guard those beds. So I like something that falls pretty quick in this situation for a jig. So like I said, a 1/2 ounce flipping jig really works well for this situation. So you can never go wrong with throwing a jig on these beds. We're gonna kind of switch gears and get into the soft plastics. Those are pretty much kind of like the harder baits that I like to use, but for the most part, guys, these next 3 are pretty much my top ones for fishing on beds, guys. I love using these, especially during beds. And the first one that we're gonna go through is the green pumpkin. It's kind of a Papa Pit Boss from Havoc. Now I like using this one Texas rigged, okay? Now you can put a weight on it, you can go with a weight, without a weight. I don't use this big of one, but just for presentation so you guys can see it well, this is what I use. Now this is a big one. I would definitely downsize on this, but green pumpkin, or sometimes even switching it up to one of those really exotic colors like a white works really well, but I think this works really well. You can toss it on that bed, you can kind of pull it across. I love fishing soft plastics on beds. Now, this one just works really well. I don't know what it is about this. I like to fish this one weightless actually, because it just seems like the fall rate getting down there is just nice and slow. There's a lot of appendages coming off the back here. I don't know what it is about this specific bait from Havoc, but it just works really well. Like I said, guys, I think this is a size, what do we got on here? This is a 5-inch. I would maybe go down to a 3 or 4-inch. I wouldn't go this big for bed fishing. I would go small. I'd probably go with a 3 or 4 and just kind of test it out from there. Switch up the colors if you guys want. If you're in clear water lakes and stuff like that, really pinks, whites, stuff like that, kind of really weird colors like that seem to do really well. So, but this Papa Pit Boss, guys, or like a beaver tail, that will work really well. So I love using this one Texas rigged, especially with no weight on there, just a weightless setup with probably like a 4/0 EWG hook works really well on this. So this is definitely one of my favorites to throw. So my next option, guys, now this option right here is one of those when you kind of are paying attention, you're being patient, you're seeing what the fish want. A lot of times these fish, especially when they're on a bed, you may like spook them off the bed, they may swim away, but they're gonna come back to the bed, guys. They're always gonna come back and guard that bed. So a lot of times you're gonna find out that you're actually catching a lot of males before the female bites. A lot of times when you're bed fishing, you can find those big female bass on those beds, and sometimes you're gonna have a lot of males in the area where you gotta kind of pluck them off of there, throw them in the live well, and then wait for that big girl to come out. But I like to use this one when it seems like the fish are just finicky and they're just not liking those reaction bites or those bigger baits. I like to downsize, go over to a Ned rig, guys. Ned rig, what I like about this light little setup is you can throw that sucker on that bed and you can really just leave it there and shake it. Sometimes even maybe a drop shot in this situation over the Ned rig, but I personally like fishing the Ned rig over the drop shot. It's just one of those baits where it's a small finesse style deal, but you can kind of throw it in those areas and you could keep it in that strike zone. The strike zone is going to be on the bed or right next to it, guys. These fish are going to be right next to it, onto it, so you want to keep that bait in the strike zone. And if you could throw something light like this, Ned rig, drop shot, kind of keep it in that area and just jiggle it a little bit, kind of get that fish fired up on this. But a Ned rig is a great bait to use, especially when bed fishing, guys. Maybe switch it up. You know, this is kind of a green pumpkin whitish color. I'd maybe go with a more natural color, something like that. But Ned rig, you can't go wrong. Something small like this when the fish are definitely a little more finicky on those beds. Now, the last bait that I saved for you guys is the #1. It is the bait I will throw 95 to 98% of the time when I'm bed fishing. I don't know what it is, but every year when I have bed fished, it just seems like this specific soft plastic just does it for me. I don't care what, I just have the most confidence in it. Maybe that's what you would call it, but I feel like it just works every single time. I never have issues with it. It's probably the one I have tied on all the time, and it's probably the one I'm gonna use right away. I'm not even gonna throw these other baits that I listed unless this just is not working. And that is going to be a Senko. I don't care what brand Senko you're using, but I'm telling you right now, guys, a Texas rig Senko on a 1/4 ounce or weightless. That's the only way that I would throw these baits, is on a 1/4 ounce or weightless. I would not fish it anything heavier than that. for some reason, it just works good. So like I said, I would fish this, the green pumpkin Senko here, and I'll get it out for you guys if I can get this package open. A nice, like I said, a green pumpkin Senko. Now, I really like to use Gary Yamamoto's green pumpkin Senko. It's a little bit lighter than this. You could even say it might even be like a watermelon color, but it's got green and purple flake in it. That is by far my favorite Senko to use for it, for bed fishing, guys. But a green pumpkin Senko will get it done. I don't know what it is about the Senko, just seems that it works really, really well. You could also switch up this color to something a little more exotic, like a pink color. Now I know this is one of those color changing baits, but for the most part it stays pretty pink in the water. Pink, yellow, even white and chartreuse seems to work really well for me. I definitely like to switch it up a little bit, especially with the whites. Now, this one you can see, very nice bright colored. Sometimes when you're out on those beds, this bright color just really gets them going. I don't know what it is about it, but it looks cool, it looks really nice. Another good thing about using bright colors like this, guys, is you can see it really well in the water. So a white is one of the colors I like to use, white and chartreuse. Gary Yamamoto Senkos, for some reason, those are really nice, work really well. What I like about them being bright, a bright color like this, is they stand out in the water. You can see it on that bed really well, but especially weightless. If you fish a Senko weightless, guys, it's just that fall time. You throw that sucker out there on that bed, and the way it just falls, it falls so slow that sometimes those fish have like no option but to grab it. I don't know what it is. It just, Senko works. It just works for me, especially in those shallow water situations. I never have an issue. So if I was gonna fish any of these top 5, I'm throwing the Senko right away. Then I'm gonna move down the line into those other baits. But before we close out this video, guys, I have a tip for you guys. Now, sometimes you gotta have patience. You gotta have patience when bed fishing, because sometimes you'll sit with that big girl on that bed sitting there and you're just, she's not biting. You're like, what is it gonna take to get this fish to bite? You gotta have patience. Now, there is a technique that I've used that seems to work really, really well. And I actually learned this from watching Scott Martin's YouTube channel. He was talking about bed fishing. And basically, let's say this is the bass, right? And this is the head of the bass right here. It's facing that way. What you can do is you can take your bait and actually throw it into where that fish is, and try to bring that bait up and over their head, over their back. So bring it behind the fish and then bounce it over and bring it right down in front of their face. What that does, and it actually works, I didn't think it was gonna work, but what it does is basically they're instinctive fish. So when this comes down right in front of them like that, if you can bring it over their back and just drop it right in front of their nose, like just coming right over, whew, like that, for some reason, they just instinctively open their mouth and grab it. So it works, it definitely works. Not all the time does it work. Sometimes the fish just gets spooked by it, but most of the time, guys, you'll get that fish to just instinctively bite that lure. So it's a great little tip, especially if you're getting impatient, you can't get that fish to bite, just to try something a little different to get that fish to bite. So really quick, guys, before we're done, let me know in the comments down below your favorite lure for, or bait for, bed fishing. Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to see what you guys are using. And that, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you guys want to be entered in that rod and reel giveaway, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you guys would love to check out Super K Jigs, which I suggest, guys, and I'm so thankful that they pitched in for this giveaway, guys. I'll link Super K down below as well. I have the code WW20 that I'll link down below in the description. If you use that, it gets you guys 20% off your order with Super K. But like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Give it a big thumbs up if you did, and we will see you guys on the next one.